Hello and welcome everyone to episode 7 of Beneath the Current. I'm Nandish Thakkar, your Vice President of Communications from CSU. Today is this very special episode for me because I get to nerd out with my professor, James Dupuis. He's a game programming professor and the program coordinator. Would you like to tell us more about what you do here, James?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I'm the coordinator, like you said, for the game programming program. So I'm also faculty. So I teach typically 3 courses each semester in game programming. Um, Sometimes it's a bit more heavy towards the second year than I am in the first year, but typically I teach the intro programming fundamentals. And then in addition to that, as coordinator, I'm just here to facilitate communication for student issues, guidance, directing them where they need to go when they have questions. Sometimes planning for students who need customized schedules. It's a lot of meetings, and just being someone that the both students and the faculty can approach for any questions. And then my primary role is to try and help guide them, but then also organizing small events like our trips or guest speakers or things like that.
Or the game jam event we had just today.
Yeah.
We finished today, but yeah.
Yeah, so that was a fun experience, I think, from the students' perspective to get some experience making games really quickly. And we'll probably do that again in the future.
That was a great event. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that a lot of other students who participate, they learned a lot as well.
Good.
And I think that was a great event, and we should definitely have more for sure.
Awesome.
So how long have you been the program coordinator for game programming?
The coordinator, I think it's 3 or 4 years, somewhere in that range.
Okay.
And I've been teaching for, I think I'm on 6 years now, in 2017. Math somewhat checks out. So yeah, I think I started in January, so I didn't start at like the beginning of a year. So I jumped in midway through.
Did you start with the same programs, same courses you're teaching right now, or did you used to teach something else?
No, we did remapping about 4 years ago. So about 2 years into my teaching, we did remapping. We actually used to be a game development technician.
Right.
And then we remapped, reassessed all our courses and needs, and focused more on game programming.
Right.
Game development was kind of a little bit of catch-all. And so we felt like we needed to target a specific job avenue, and most of our course content was programming related. So we just kind of leaned in heavier on that, I guess, and then just refocus some of the other content.
So do you do the remapping more often, or is it just when you feel like it's time to upgrade now?
No, so the college kind of does it once every, I think it's 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
So we're actually starting to plan for remapping right now.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
So we can make changes. Now, the college has also adapted recently. It used to be kind of strict where we would, every 4 years, you can make changes. The nice part is now that there is a little bit of leeway in terms of making annual changes.
Right.
So, which is really important for like a high-tech kind of program like ours. So, right, technology changes day to day, sometimes
every day,
So we need to be on top of those things. So
especially what we've seen with AI, it was so primitive last year, and now it's gotten so much better.
It's exponentially growing.
Crazy.
And we need to figure out, what are the jobs then of the future? What do students need to know? What do they not need to know? So we're at a weird middle ground right now where we're going to be planning, and we don't know all the answers for where we should be guiding students in terms of AI use or not. And so we're still figuring that out. And there's actually like meetings this week that I'm involved with this, having discussions about that, and just, seeing where we go from there. And so that's certainly going to be a hot topic moving forward. And so this year to year ability to kind of tweak things is going to be especially handy in terms of that, so that, if the industry makes a 180 turn and we're, focused really on hard using AI, then we can pivot and we can make that change and start addressing it in our curriculum a bit. My concern and immediate goal is always to try and get you the jobs, right?
Yes.
That should be my focus, is getting you a job. Obviously educating you and teaching you programming, but also making sure you can get a job. So presently it's a weird situation where I think most employers are still doing programming tests or technical interviews. and I need students to be able to articulate
Yes. Yeah.
the concepts and know what they're talking about. And so that's always my concern with AI a little bit is if we're pushing AI to the students and they don't understand necessarily the low level concepts and the interviewers are looking for still the low level,
I agree. Yeah.
then the students will suffer. So if they're moving towards more high level and they're saying it's not necessary for somebody to know the low levels, then by all means, I'm open to kind of switching our curriculum and looking at how can we, encourage them to think more high level and know bigger concepts quicker.
Yeah. That is for sure. The other thing that I kind of feel with AI is you can get through AI. You can just ask AI to make a video game and it will spit something out, but it's not perfect yet.
Yeah.
Right? It will make mistakes. It's good that you know how to use the AI. It's good that you're using the AI, but it's not going to get you anywhere unless you know the intricacies and the low-level programming things that you say. You need to learn the fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
You can't just go straight ahead with ChatGPT and just be like, hey, make me a video game. It's not going to work like that.
Yeah.
It takes a lot more than that.
Yeah. It's understanding the lower level of what's happening. So that's always my concern. And it's the same, like if I were to ask it to, come up with an essay in Spanish, it could probably do that. I'm sure it can.
Yeah.
I will have no idea what it's doing, what it's saying. I
Exactly.
can't proofread it. I can't validate that what it said was correct or it made the right choices. So it's the same with a programming language. Like if you don't understand the fundamentals of that programming language, it'll pump it out, but you don't understand what it's pumping out. Maybe it gave you the answer. Maybe it's slightly incorrect. Maybe it's perfect, but you're just blindly trusting.
Yeah.
And maybe we get to that point where we can just blindly trust.
Maybe. That would be great.
Yeah. But I think at this point, we still need some fundamental knowledge and understanding. But to what degree, I guess we need to evaluate, right? We need to always be reassessing what is the core.
There is the possibility that it will be there where you can trust it blindly. Right. So,
exactly.
Yeah, you have to think about that.
Yeah. And then it becomes more of a focus on, I think, the creativity and the problem solving, and which it can assist with as well. So it's getting interesting. Yeah. So
So are there any plans you have for future that you can share with us right now?
In terms of the program?
In terms of the program?
It's really just like preliminary discussions right now. We actually did make a change last year.
Okay.
So not your year, but the year that just started this past fall.
Right.
They will have a user interface course in the third semester that you have right now. And then only one graphics course. So the graphics course would be in the fourth semester. There's some switches that happen. So like right now you have 2 math courses in the same semester. That's distributed. So now one would be in the third semester and one would be in the fourth semester.
Okay. That would take a lot of weight off of
that's
our course loads.
That's what we've heard in the past, is that students find that heavy with 2 maths in the third semester. So we wanted to try and find a solution that could kind of distribute the load a little bit better, but also still ensuring that students know what they need to know. So
coming to the point that course load can be very heavy and the program is very, very, very tech heavy, right?
Yeah.
So what are some tips you would like to give to students, future students, current students, so they can manage their time properly, they don't get overwhelmed by the course load? Is there anything that you would like to say about that?
It's a building effect, right? It's like a boulder or a snowball, and if you push that snowball over while it's small, it's a lot easier. But once it gets rolling and builds up, it then can get really heavy. So my advice is always like, you may have 2 weeks to do an assignment, and it's balance, right? It's you have to balance your own sanity and personal life and family and work and all these other things. So I get it. There's a lot going on, but when you do have that free time and can do it, and I do this in my own personal life, I say it to my son all the time, like there's no sense putting off till tomorrow what you can get done today. It's a cliche kind of statement, but it really reduces stress. And I'm guilty of somebody who used to always kind of, wait till those deadlines or do things. And I got to a point where I personally couldn't handle the stress anymore. I couldn't do it. So now it's just like, if I can get this done and I have a free moment, let's get it done while I have the energy. I don't know that I'm not going to be sick tomorrow or something else is going to get me. So let's focus when I'm healthy and when I'm good mentally and everything. Let's get what I can done, and then push it. And if I start to wear out, now it's time to take a break.
Yes.
And then you can take a
break. Taking
break.
breaks is so important.
Yeah, definitely.
So important. Yeah.
Taking a step back from things sometimes just
absolutely.
clears your brain and
and the most important thing is you have to be okay with failing.
Yes. There's a lot to learn from failing.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes you learn more from failing than you do from succeeding. So certainly there's a
Yeah. For me, the culture I come from, it's like you always have to be the best. It's the course load back home was a lot more than what's here.
Okay.
But still, it's very stressful. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So what I would do is I need to do it perfectly rather than doing it, making mistakes and learning from them.
Okay.
Like that's how I used to do it in the beginning.
Okay.
But as we went further, I learned that it's okay to make mistakes.
Definitely.
Right? You will learn from them. That's why we are here to learn.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's difficult because you're always concerned about your grades, right?
Yes.
But certainly for me, I know certain students, value those grades, and it helps. It may help with like moving on to another institution later on. For the employment, most employers are not really going to be asking for your transcript to see your grades and how you did. They want to know that you graduated, and they want to know that you understand the concepts. So I don't care that necessarily, me personally, again, students are welcome to, but I don't care if you got a 95 or a 65. If I ask you a question and you can answer it, that's the important part to me. So
exactly.
Really the knowledge is the key part.
Yeah, talking about the opportunities in the gaming industry, what are some of the roles current students or future students would be looking into and are probably not sure, because game development is a lot of things, right? There are so many things people can do. So what can people start by researching basically to look into what their interests lie in, what roles they would be more passionate about?
Yeah. So this is typically where I try to speak to open house students before they come to the program. I try to involve them in the programming process ahead of time. So I will ask if they've done kind of any programming in high school. And if not, then I encourage them to I will send them an email with YouTube links that they could follow and tutorials to get a sense of what programming is, because there's so many different roles in the games industry, right? So, and they're very different. And it's weird because we have this team of very different people coming together to build this product, right? So we have designers, we have 3D modelers, we have 2D artists, we have animators, we have programmers, and we have all kinds of different programmer subdivisions of roles, and so subdivisions of artists and designers, and then there's producers, or like the management. There's project coordinators, there's IT people, there's build specialists, there's QA. So
that's a lot of
people,
positions,
and it's like a movie. Like you've got like your set designers, your wardrobe, your makeup, all these people, your actors, your director. It's the same with games. It's all these production kind of things that are coming together to build that product. And it takes a long time is another thing that people sometimes don't realize. It sometimes takes years to make a game and hundreds to thousands of people. So it depends on your scope. And then sometimes you have indie developers. So you have people who are one-off or like two people in a group, and they're jack of all trades doing the multiple roles.
Things at a time.
I miss sound actually. So there's so many. I miss the sound artists, designers, and people hooking at it. So as a programmer, our program is typically gearing to make you a game programmer. Is our focus. It doesn't mean that you can't get a role as QA, as a designer, as an artist. It's just that we've focused in that programming avenue. Now, in terms of programming, again, there's specializations, or there's there's a generalist game programmer. You could also not even be a game programmer coming in. We're teaching you the fundamentals of programming no matter what. So, and if anything, sometimes with game programming, we're more strict in terms of memory utilization and memory management because we have so many large assets. So you could become, a software engineer, a tools developer, a web developer, things like that. We have lots of avenues that our graduates can go off and do. But in games specifically too, they could be doing, specific rules. They're looking typically for a junior role.
Right.
But there is, junior UI programmers, graphics programmers, AI networking programmers. And that's why in that third semester in our program, you see those kind of specializations as specific courses. So you'll see we have an AI course, a network programming course, a graphics course, in the future, a UI course.
It's very diverse.
So that we try to give you a taste of all those different specialization avenues. And I'm sure you've noticed in your classroom, some students may say, and it's fine. They may say, I hate networking. God, I hate network programming. And God, I hate graphics programming,
I
but I
hate
love AI.
programming.
That's fine. And I'm not insulted. I teach AI and I
Yeah.
teach graphics programming. I'm not at all insulted. I've had students that say, I love the networking, I hate the graphics. I hate the graphics, I love the networking. And I've had students that say, I hate them both, but I love the AI, which is another course.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Which is okay. That's
Exactly.
where you find out what you like and what you don't like, right?
Exactly. That's the whole point of the system is to allow students to get a taste of those specializations so that they can then, you know, expand off of that and build their knowledge and go, you know, it was the same for me as a student. I came to the college and I didn't take game programming. Didn't exist at the time. A little bit older, but we had computer.
So sorry, you studied here at SLC,
I did.
right? Yeah.
I'm an SLC graduate. So I came in Cornwall here to. I took a computer engineering technologist or computer. I think that was the title. Anyways, it was 33% programming. 33% like networking, like the CST program,
Yes.
and 33% low level kind of like electrical, like soldering and understanding the components.
So it was like more.
It was closer to what
hardware.
the closer to what the CST program and maybe the CP program combined would be right now.
Yeah.
But in that moment, then I realized I didn't mind networking. I liked it okay. I really hated the hardware, low-level soldering stuff, and I loved the programming. So I knew in high school I had done a little bit of dabbling in some small programming, but nothing like I learned here. And
So
then,
like, did you used to make games or just small programs?
no, at that point it was just small. Started out with like my intro gateway, I say, is like HTML. Not really a programming language, but it is a language. So making websites, and then it built into like JavaScript, PHP. And then in high school, I think I took like some Visual Basic courses. So, and that was kind of my gateway. And then I came here and we started touching on C, C++. I touched on a number of different languages here, actually. We did assembly, which is very low level. And we did all kinds of web-based programming and even some like Pascal and languages that are closer to obsolete now. So, but yeah, it was a good mix of learning, and it's similar with arts. Like we are more focused on programming, but we want you to get a taste of all those different avenues that you can take.
And that's what I really like about this program is even though that we do specific things in specific courses, we still have the freedom to explore our interests and passion and integrate with those classwork that we have to do. So that's what I really like about the assignments and lab works that we have to do.
Good.
And there's always so much freedom.
Good.
Yeah, and talking about you graduating from SLC, how was your professional experience in the gaming industry after you graduated?
I was so I loved it. I loved making games. It's still a passion of mine. Like I enjoy it. It's different than previous jobs that I had. It was a lot more flexible. A lot more trusting in terms of it. Like it wasn't like punch in, punch out, strict, you're being monitored type of thing. Very casual of a workplace.
Was it an indie studio or?
No, so I went to work at, my first employer was HB Studios in Lindbergh. I applied to a lot of companies. At that time, there wasn't much in Canada, but I kind of sent my resume out to a bunch of companies. They were the first ones to get back to me. Did the usual process of testing, technical test, did that, completed it well enough. I didn't do great, I didn't think, but enough to get an interview. And then they did a technical interview with me after. Again, did well enough. I didn't think I'd do great. You're always like self-reflecting and going, oh, I bombed this, I did terrible. But in the end, it was enough to get me in the door. And then they gave me an offer. I flew there, I drove there, moved there with my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. And we started my career. I should speak about the fact that second, like self-doubting constantly. Imposter syndrome is a huge thing.
I was going to bring that up.
Huge thing in programming. So I probably had imposter syndrome for the first 5 years as a programmer, thinking I was just faking it and I didn't belong, but I was getting work done. But in my head, I was going, I'm just like hoping that things are working together here and it's working, and it's somehow I'm conning the system and I'm making it. And then it's funny because I reflected and I had conversations with my other coworkers later on down the line once we had moved on to different companies, and one of his comments was, we spoke openly about that we were feeling, nervous and like an imposter. And he said, the first 5 years I was working, we both got hired at the same time. He said, I was constantly looking at you going, James is so good. He's doing all this. I'm so scared. And I was always looking at him going, how is he? I'm going to leave my name, but how is he doing all this? How is he getting all that done? What am I doing? And then so you're comparing yourself as a programmer, and it's not good mentally.
Yes. Yes.
And so I think we're too hard on ourselves. And the problem with programming is you're never feeling comfortable that you know everything.
Yes.
You never feel like an absolute expert. And even if a student asks me as a professor, I'm not going to say, if they say, what are you the expert on this? I'm going to say, I know a good amount about this and I can teach you this. But to say you're an expert to me means that you know absolutely end all be all everything. And with programming, again, things change constantly. There's always new things. There's new mechanics that I may not know that somebody else knows.
Yes.
I'm hesitant to always say I'm an expert, but I feel pretty confident now at this point in my life.
Yeah.
But it took years. It took years to build up confidence in my programming. And I mean, you've been in my class.
Yes.
I make mistakes sometimes. I will be programming and going, it should work. It's not working. And then we debug it in class, right? It happens to everybody. So
that's what it is. You make mistake, you figure out a solution, and then you move on.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I think it's a lot more about problem solving than just getting stuck at something and being discouraged by it and just giving up.
Yeah.
You don't do that. Even though you don't know where you're going, just Google something, just research, just do whatever.
Yeah.
You will find something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I kind of agree with the imposter syndrome thing. I personally, and I've talked to a lot of students as well, and I kind of feel like that they feel the imposter syndrome as soon as they start the program.
Yeah.
It starts very early. You might think that it starts when you go into the industry, but it starts right here.
Yeah. And so you see the second years and you're already going, how are they working on that? And then, I can imagine. And then it can be intimidating.
Yes.
It's unfortunate. It's a lot. There's a lot of information to digest very quickly. So I can understand that.
Yeah. And I don't think that this program is particularly difficult. It just requires a lot of hard work.
Yes.
And you need to give it all your time. And the most important thing that I've learned is just be around like-minded people, as in people who play video games, who talk video games, who just want to do anything about video games, because that helps a lot to get you into the zone, get you into the thinking process, right?
Yeah. So like you said, dedication, commitment, and passion.
Yeah.
So those things are what's really going to push you more than anything else. And you have to 100% buy into the fact that this is what you want for your life, if that's what you want for your life. I absolutely don't want to make anybody a game programmer that doesn't want to be a game programmer or a game designer or anything like that, right? I want people to do what they're going to be happy doing. And so maybe sometimes a student comes and then they start the program and they do realize it's not going to be for them. That happens, and it's hard if you don't have that passion. So that's where, again, my coordinator role comes in, where I have to try and guide them to where
exactly. And that's actually something that happened with me. Okay. After my first year, I do like programming. It's fun. I like it, but it's not where my passion was it, right? I wanted to do game design. That's what I wanted to do since the beginning. So that's what I'm focusing on now. I'm still doing programming, but I'm still also doing a bit of designing. So I use my knowledge for designing, my skills, my passion, and try and integrate with the programming stuff. And it helps so much.
And you're building up both of those portfolios, right? So you're building up a portfolio that you could lean towards a design role or programming. And so you open up avenues by thinking that way, right?
Yeah.
So it's a good kind of like option select that you have now in your repertoire, and your portfolio is building from that. So
definitely. And the other thing is that you have to start building your portfolio as early as possible. You can't wait till you graduate and think like, oh, I'll apply all the skills and knowledge I learned. I'll apply it after I graduate and make a portfolio. No, just use whatever you make here for your classwork. You can use that as a portfolio. Yeah.
I'm just going to go back to, because I feel like I didn't completely answer your question prior.
Sorry about that.
No, it's I derailed it with the imposter syndrome chat, but and it's nice that it's fluid, the conversation. Yes. But I just want to make sure I answer your question about the industry and how I felt like that. Like, again, very casual. I just want to give like a high level rundown of the day, maybe. Come in, lots of companies have flex time.
Yeah.
So you can come in anytime between like 8 to 10 and they have like core hours, and then you can leave anytime between 4 to 6 or whatever, as long as you're putting in your time. And it's typically, you start your day, check your emails, check your team's messages, whatever it is, Slack or whatever kind of messaging system they're using. We have a Scrum meeting. So the team, it's a lot of communication in games. So team gets together, everybody updates on what they were working on previously, if they're stuck on anything.
Right.
And then maybe it, facilitates some conversation where somebody else on the team was going, oh, I didn't realize you were stuck on that. I could help you with that. And so that's typically put the start of the day, and then you check your tasks in your Jira board or some sort of software that keeps track of what tasks you're supposed to get done. We have sprints, so we do things typically in like 2-week segments. In 2 weeks, we have to get this done.
Right.
It creates dependencies for somebody else. I need to get the A button hooked up so that whenever that moves forward, the next person can do their job.
Yeah.
So it's a big kind of cog wheel of everybody's kind of working together.
Right.
You're dependent on somebody else. They're dependent on someone else is dependent on you, and
everyone works hand in hand.
Yeah. So you're sitting typically in pods like this. I may have a computer there, and we'll have like 3 or 4 people. And when you get stumped, you just kind of look up and say, hey, I'm stuck here. Any tips you got for this? And there's like senior developers, and you might go like, hey, can you come take a look at my code? They review it and then kind of say, oh, you might want to look at this, or try and guide you. And then you're getting your tasks done, checking them off, passing it up, submitting to a central kind of code repository that everybody can share, and then just keep building day to day. And then there's phases of the project. We have prototyping, we have development stages, and then we have the alpha beta stages of finalizing and doing bug fixing. Little bit different day to day on what you're doing based off whether you're doing prototyping, design, feature actual implementation, or bug fixing, but overall it's still programming and troubleshooting. It just takes different skills to look at.
Right.
But you develop those things and then as you go. Sometimes junior programmers, they will stick right away on bug fixing. It allows you to kind of try and search all over the project for things. And you get familiarized with projects quickly that way.
So does it ever get like exhausting?
Yes. It can get draining, depending on, there's a few factors. It depends on the studio,
right,
and how they manage their time. There is historically crunch sometimes in studios, which for those who are not familiar, it's when we do overtime because we have a strict deadline. So like when I was working on EA games, we would have to have the Madden game out every year. So we're going to need to get it done. This is subsequently changed, and it depends on the studio working out, but you have those deadlines. We have to stay overtime to make sure we have 2,000 bugs in the game. We need to get it down to as much as we can.
Absolutely. By the time before the release date.
Sometimes there's like these really minor things that you can ship with, but the game breaking bugs absolutely need to be gone. So absolutely. It's like, tonight we're staying until we get off 300 bugs done. And then because we're calculating a trajectory and we know that we need to be down to 0. So if we have 2,000, we need to get 300 done today because there's going to be new bugs that get introduced tomorrow that get found and add up.
You solve one, you find 10 more.
Yeah, sometimes. So it's about trying to reduce those levels towards the deadline and anticipating that. So if you work, the regular day and all of a sudden we haven't hit our target, you might have to do some overtime. Typically they'll make you feel really comfortable. They'll give you supper. They'll do whatever they can to keep you happy and going. And then afterwards, that time is, again, it depends on the studio, but my historic, I guess things that have happened for me, it's been like you get time off in lieu afterwards. So if you do like a lot of that crunch time, then maybe you'll have a week or 2 off of work in addition to your regular vacation. I know there's some studios that have a no crunch policy, and they absolutely will not do crunch regardless of deadlines. And they will cut features instead and say like, no, we're not going to have this or certain things. So, and I'm sure that's difficult to manage, but it seems like they're doing a really good job of it. So it's a good progress that I'm seeing in the industry for that. So
that's what my next question was going to be like. So is the gaming industry changing in that terms? Like, as you said, like some game studios to have a no crunch policy. So like, are more studios adapting that policy?
I think so. I think that they're realizing now looking at the long term that they burn out employees, right? So case in point, me a little bit. But if they see somebody who's if they're losing people when they hit a certain age, they're seeing that, oh, we're losing too many people when they start hitting their mid 30s or something like that. What's going on? And they're assessing that, right? And they're going, well, we've invested so much time. They have so much knowledge that they are taking with them. Like, they are a huge asset. That person that's leaving, that's been at the company for 5 to 10 years, they've got knowledge of the game engine and how it works. They can quickly jump in and solve problems. Absolutely. And they mentor the young kind of people that are jumping in, right? So they don't want to lose that. So how can they facilitate ensuring that that's not going to happen? It's by reducing as much crunch and overtime as they can. Now, within reason, deadlines are still going to happen. I'm not somebody who's a studio head who has to manage that, but it's historically been part of the industry. But I think that they're recognizing that there's validity in ensuring that doesn't continue. So
that's really nice. That's really good to hear, because I kind of feel like a lot of people interested in game development get discouraged just because of that reason.
Yeah.
You need to have a work-life balance, right?
Yeah. So I believe that's kind of coming to a close or easing its way out. So that's really good to
That's
hear.
really good. Yeah, that's really great for the prospective game developers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to hear that.
Yeah. So do you have any advice for students who are watching this podcast and are considering to join game programming program?
So like I said, at open houses, I typically advise them, but for those who can't make it to an open house, my primary advice is to just ensure that you understand the concept, the core components of programming. We do go over it. We teach it to students. We expect that you don't have any knowledge of programming, but to jump into a game programming program, my concern is always that sometimes students see the term game, and they think it's, it is a lot of fun. It can be fun.
It is,
but it is hard work, and so they see the game and they I like playing games, so I'm going to go into this role. But it's not, playing games and programming games and designing games and art for games are completely different. So I just like for students to understand the differences in the roles and what would be expected of a game programmer, because you're going to be now dedicating 2 years of your life to at least doing this education in game programming. So I want you to have that passion and that drive and that desire and focus to want to do programming. So there's lots of YouTube. You can just Google search YouTube. I provide it to my students as resources in my Blackboard, but there's lots of YouTube. If you search for intro C tutorial, intro C++, it doesn't even have to be C or C++. That is the standard kind of language that most in games industry companies use because of memory management. But Python, whatever your entry kind of level language that you feel comfortable when you start looking at it and it clicks with me, JavaScript, anything. It really, I want you to be learning the high level concepts of knowing if statements and loops and maybe functions.
It doesn't matter what language it is.
Exactly.
Because some of the concepts are very similar. Right?
And that's the nice part is and oftentimes I tell that to students that if you learn C++, it's really one of the more stricter languages. So you can jump to almost any other language. It's learning the slight syntax differences, but there's more leniency in the other languages than there are in C++. So
what language do you usually work on, or you used to work on when you were making games? I know you still make video games, right?
Yeah. So
I've seen some video games on your website.
Yeah. So if it's Unity, then I might be using C#.
Right.
But as an example, like most, it would be C++. Historically, in my past, C++. If you're using Unreal Engine, you're going to be using C++, or most proprietary engines. So if you're working at companies, and a lot of companies don't use just Unreal or Unity, they use their own in-house one. There's lots of different engines out there. So C++ is typically, like even Unity is built using C++. So it's hard to avoid C++ working in the industry. You're going to see it at some point. I've worked with proprietary scripting languages on a lot of games for typically like the user interface stuff. So if you're doing user interface work, it will be either, it could be C#, it could be whatever, but I've worked with, in-house built languages and editors for user interface. I've worked with low-level languages for the hardware itself. So I've worked with like Java. I shouldn't say low level, but I've worked with like the hardware level languages. So if you're making a game for mobile,
Right.
it's got to communicate from your backend, probably C++, communicate to Java to be able to communicate with the device interfacing. And then I've had connecting that C++ to a user interface script, like a C script or some sort of other script. And then I've had the networking component, server side be, Java, Python, whatever. You can have a completely different side on another computer that's running that you connect to. And then on the iOS side, you could have its own language for that too. So,
that's what I really, it's just all different sorts of tools that you just use to make something.
Yeah.
That's what basically it is.
So easily on most games, it's not just one language. It's typically at least 2 languages to 3. And I've worked on games that have 5 or 6 different languages for one game. For just the different components of the game are all intercommunicating in these different languages. So yeah.
That's crazy.
So that's why it's important to understand those fundamentals. It's going to go into any of those languages. It's just, some languages are quicker at doing one thing or better at managing another thing. So it's the right tool for the job. And sometimes it's just whatever the architect decided. I want to explore this new language, or I really like this language, and they'll start using that for whatever component. So there's different tools for different jobs.
What was your favorite thing to ever make? Like, it could be a personal project or something you made at in your previous work history.
My favorite thing that I ever made was just local prototypes.
Okay.
It was out of scope, but it was still my favorite thing to make. Actually, one of my favorite things to make which is what I still go back to every now and then, was my capstone project as a student here.
Oh, okay.
I made a cross-platform tactical RPG, and I did the models. It worked from Linux to Windows, and it had networking.
Wow.
And it was like I did the 3D board, different levels. I really like Final Fantasy Tactics and games like that in Disgaea. So at that time, Final Fantasy Tactics was like my go-to game. So it wasn't a game programming program, but I knew I wanted to work in games.
Yeah.
So that was, again, that drive.
Yes.
I knew I wanted to do that. So I said, for my capstone, I presented it to my professors, and he approved. And it was that was probably one of the most fun because I learned a lot. But also I just love tactical RPGs. So in my career, most of it has been sports games.
Right.
I'm honestly not a huge fan of sports games. So
That's
personally,
fair.
And especially the games, I'm not a big football fan to begin with. If it was hockey, that may have been a different story, but I never got to work on an NHL team. In terms of, professional career, one of my favorite games was probably FIFA Street. FIFA Street was fun, but it actually never got released.
Right.
But FIFA World Cup, South Africa.
Yeah.
That was probably my favorite game to make because I got a lot of fun creative jobs. I got introduced to some graphics programming at that point. I did I had to do waving flag animations in the crowd. I had to do streams behind players with effects. And I also got to work on a lot of UI elements. And it was just a fun team.
Yeah.
So I think the team that you're working with really makes a great experience too.
Definitely.
So it's I always go back to FIFA World Cup as one of my favorites. There was another game that was unreleased that I really enjoyed as well. That was a Professor Layton style game on the Nintendo DS. It again didn't get released, but working on the puzzles on that was really fun. So the thing about games
is... You do like puzzle games, right?
I do like some puzzle games, I think the thing about games is, which a lot of people in the industry will tell you, is sometimes you don't want to work on the games that you love.
Yes.
Because you'll see all the flaws, you'll see all the hackiness, and you'll be playing it day in and day out to test what you're implementing, and it'll just ruin it for you. So it destroys the magic of some of the games sometimes.
That's actually good to know that you should not make video games that you generally like playing.
I don't know if that's great. That's great advice because you do have the passion for it, right?
I mean, but again, what you said makes sense.
It sometimes can. It depends. I think it depends on the game, depends on a lot of factors. So but I've definitely heard some people say that, where don't work on a game that you love because it will ruin it for you. That being said, if you really, really, really love it, and you could sit there and play it day in and day out, the same thing, maybe it's a great fit. I don't know. So yeah.
What's your favorite game though? like of all time?
All time. It's probably Final Fantasy Tactics. So it's hard. It's hard to pick one. I like Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy 6/3,
Right.
depending on if you're North American. Um, I really like Street Fighter.
Oh yeah, that's a good game.
So I'm really into Street Fighter 6 right now. I'm working my way to a Master Zangief. I'm Diamond 4 Zangief right now, so I'm like
Nice.
2 notches away from getting.
I don't play it, so I don't know
Master.
what you're talking about.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, so like perspective, I think I'm in like with my Zangief, I'm in the top 110 in Canada or 115 right now in Canada.
Wow, okay.
And
That's
then
really cool.
My Lily is top 75 right now for Canada.
Wow.
So I'm working on those things, but I liked Overwatch. I played that with my son quite
Yeah.
a bit.
I've played Overwatch a bit. It's a nice game.
I like the team
Yeah.
communication aspect of it. So yeah, tactical RPGs in general, old school JRPGs that have turn-based combat,
Right.
and then fighting games, mostly Street Fighter. Yeah, and I was actually top 50 in the world with T-Hawk in Street Fighter 4.
Wow.
I liked Street Fighter 4 a lot. So, but I'm really getting into Street Fighter 6. I think Street Fighter 5 was a bad game, if you ask me, and I think Street Fighter 6 has been.
Shannon agrees.
Yeah, I think Street Fighter 6 has been a huge improvement.
Yeah.
There's obviously mechanics that they can tweaks that they can make, and there's certain characters that need buffs or debuffs, but it's actually very well balanced.
Yeah.
I would argue, even if people complain that like Zangief is one of the bottom characters, I'm a Zangief player and I'm a Lily player. They're bottom 2 out of the 3, I would say.
Yeah.
But it is still very well balanced. I can still make it and compete against somebody who's very high level. So there's no character that is complete trash in that game. Anyways, yeah. So I can talk about Street Fighter for a long time, but yeah, Street Fighter, Overwatch, and old school RPGs are my favorites, and then I'll play things like Minecraft and all kinds of different games, Nintendo games with my son. I'll play Mario and Mario Party and whatnot. So,
are you more of a PC gamer or a console gamer?
Again, diversified. So it depends. I used to, growing up, always consoles. Since I started working in the industry, probably 50-50.
Yeah, because you have to test on all the consoles and all the types of hardwares. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter to me. Like if I'm gonna play Street Fighter, I play on my PC.
Yeah.
But I'm using a controller. I'm not using a keyboard and mouse. So
I use controllers to play PC games all the time.
Yeah. So it's really just a piece of hardware in the end. And really, like, your console is just a PC. It's just a very proprietary, specific PC, but it has all the same components. It has a CPU, a GPU, a hard drive, RAM.
Yeah.
If you take apart an Xbox, you're going to be able to replace the hard drive. Like it's
just a PC.
Yeah. So there's certain exclusives that are great on certain consoles, but I like the openness of PC as well. So PC is more difficult sometimes to develop for, is what I would say. It's kind of like Android, where there's so many different hardware capability, like mix and matches. Whereas with if you're developing for Xbox or PlayStation, that the player is running with this hardware. It's going to run this way whenever I test it. For the most part, there's variance a little bit to this consoles, but for the most part, but they do come with their challenges. They have regulations. Sony has to vet your game. It has like a checklist of you have to meet this, and you have to be approved by them, and then your game can be released. So it's Steam has checklists, but it's a little bit more fluid to be able to get your game released there.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some questions from students.
Okay.
I think I saw some questions yesterday. I'll pull them out real quick.
As a side note, you mentioned that you don't like sports games very much. Is there another genre of game that you don't particularly enjoy, or what's the least favorite game you've ever played? Like, what's one game you're like, never again?
Oh, wow.
Other than Kong that just released them.
I've heard so many things. Yeah. Game that I absolutely hate. Wow. You don't remember the ones that you hate, right?
No, you have reason to remember, right?
Yeah. I know that I dislike the newer Grand Theft Autos.
Fair.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I just really can't get into being what I consider the villain. Maybe that's not the case, but I don't like doing crimes and things like that. So to me, I just don't enjoy it. Games which I know a lot of people love it, so that's fair.
That's that would be like a hot take, right? Because everybody loved GTA 5. Everybody's freaking out about GTA 6 coming out and stuff like that. And I mean, it's probably a pretty unpopular opinion.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. And
but
I mean, that's the point of games, is to experience things that you're not really allowed to experience or can't experience in real life, right? Like, that's the great part about games is, you know, you can become a fish and then all of a sudden you're now a fish that can swim, and you can't do that in real life, right? So I don't know what it is about me, but just instinctually, I just don't want to do those bad things. So like, there's no passion for me to.
Find, like, any entertainment value.
Exactly.
Like, whatever. I'd rather be a fish
And
than.
And it's not like a high ethical type of thing like that. Like, I'm picking up Zangief and body slamming whatever, a little tiny character. So it's not like, and I don't mind games that are really like a shooter game or gory or anything like that. So it's nothing like that. I don't understand. It's just this is the other aspect that probably plays into it. I have a hard time with third person games. So almost as soon as I see a game that is a third person character game,
Right.
I'm turned off. I'm like, I don't really want to play this much. So there's, you know, small exceptions like Mario or something like that. But even Mario, like, yeah, it's.
I mean, like, and I feel too, there's something to be said about like how, like, sort of like what kind of game it is too, right? Like for example, like I play a lot of Call of Duty and I play in the league as well. And it's like they have a third person shooter mode, but it's like, why?
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't quite make sense for the game. But like, I have 2 kids, and we all have a Nintendo Switch, and Minecraft is very popular, Mario Kart's very popular, all those games, and you know, Mario's all third person, right?
Yeah.
Those games kind of make sense. Or
Yeah.
it's a 2D side scroller. I play Sonic with my kids, right? But it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not playing Call of Duty or anything third person like that could be a little weird, right?
For me, especially the ones that are like the over the shoulder third person, I'm just like, I just want to be in that character's head. Like, why? And
Just move the camera forward a foot.
Yeah, and I feel weird, like where you can physically see around a corner that your character can't, and that to me is like you're controlling the character, but like you're outside. You're not feeling like connected to the character. You're feeling like this God mode of controlling the character, but also having this extra cheat advantage of being able to see around things or whatnot. But also, I don't know what that character's viewpoint is. So like to me, I'm just like, how do I know where I'm shooting? And you're like, your reticle is on there, but like, it doesn't make sense that's where I see in the center of my screen, but that's not necessarily where the character would see. So I don't know.
It's an interesting thing, and as a game designer, that's something.
Yeah. Adding to that, I've been playing Spider-Man 2 on PS5.
My son has as well.
Yeah, they have the third-person thing, and in some of the cutscenes, the interactive cutscenes, kind of the interactive ones where you can move the camera around.
Yeah.
In some of those scenes, you are just seeing the character's face and not what they are seeing. It's just so frustrating. They're in a roller coaster, and all I see is their head and not the view in front of them.
Okay.
Like, why? What's the whole point of making the whole roller coaster ride, animating everything, and just not letting the player experience it? It's like, just why?
Yeah. Those games are beautiful though. Like the Spider-Man's one,
those are really beautiful,
the level
but
of
just
detail that they put into them is incredible. Like I was just like asking my son, climb that building and then look in that window, like, and it's fully like an office built into that window, and I'm going, the level of detail they went into, and it's unique. It's not like it's just cloned, instantiated.
Yes.
It's like this one is slightly different than that one, slightly different than that one, like for thousands of like these little offices all over.
and it's so huge. The city, the map, it's so big.
Yeah.
There's so much to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with the RTX reflections, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
Yeah. So are you playing on?
I'm playing on PS5.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that's where he's playing as well, and it's good.
Yeah, it's really fun. Okay, so I finally managed to get the questions from the students. I see there's only one question.
Okay.
It's from Josh TS.
Okay.
He's asking, what's your third favorite color?
What's my third favorite color?
Yes.
It's changed over time really in my life. So I think pink is now my favorite color.
Oh, nice.
Do you consider black and white colors or just shades? My secondary color would probably be red, but then that's just a shade of pink. So third favorite color. It's definitely not orange. I can tell you what my least favorite color is, which is funny because I'm a Flyers fan, but I hate orange for some reason. Third favorite. Let's go in order. Let's go pink. Let's count red as a separate color and not just a shade. And we'll probably say blue after that. But
yeah.
Or maybe purple. Blue or purple.
Okay. Blue or purple.
Yeah.
There you go, Josh. Now you have to leave your third favorite color in the comment.
That was a pretty intense question, Josh. I don't know.
Yeah. Thank you so much, James. Do you have any final thoughts? Do you want to give a shout out to anyone?
No, I don't. I think you've asked a lot of great questions.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to just kind of be included in this and be able to talk to prospective students or current students about this, help guide them in any way. And I guess final thought is, if any student is interested in the program or wants to follow up with me about anything, I'm happy. You can drop by my office, which is in the main A203 lab in Altsville, or you can send me an email. It's jbdupuis@sl.on.ca, and I'm happy to always hear from anybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, James, for coming and talking about game programming. It was really nice having you, and hopefully we can do this again.
Perfect. Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.